My 16-year-old grandson slipped me a storage unit key at dinner and whispered 5 words that changed everything. "Don't tell Dad, please." We were sitting at my dining room table. Sunday night. The usual family dinner I'd been hosting for 20 years since my wife Eleanor passed. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans from my garden. Martin, my son, sat across from me, cutting his chicken into precise squares. Vanessa, his wife, picked at her salad, checking her phone. Dylan sat next to me, quiet. Too quiet for a teenager who usually dominated conversation. All through dinner, I'd watched him carefully. Normally, Dylan talked non-stop, asked questions about my business, told stories from school, made jokes. Tonight, he stared at his plate, pushed food around without eating, glanced at his father with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear. My grandson was afraid of his own father. "Dylan, you okay?" I asked. Martin looked up. "He's fine, just tired. Finals week." Dylan nodded. Didn't look at me. After dinner, Martin and Vanessa went to the kitchen to help with dishes. Dylan waited quietly at the table. 20 minutes later, they were ready to leave. Dylan came over to give me his usual goodbye hug. As we embraced by the front door, he pressed something into my palm. Hard metal, warm from his pocket. A key. "Hide this key," he whispered against my ear, his voice trembling with fear. "Unit C18, Riverside Storage, Mason Avenue. He can't know I told you. Please promise me." His voice was shaking with terror. I'd never heard from him before. I opened my mouth to ask why, but Martin walked back in, drying his hands on a towel. Dylan pulled his hand back, fast. "Ready to go?" Martin asked him. Dylan nodded, stood up, avoided my eyes. "Thanks for dinner, Grandpa," he said. Then they left. I sat there, staring at the key in my hand, feeling its weight. I didn't know what was in Unit C18, but my grandson's eyes told me I needed to find out immediately. Something terrible was happening in my family. I didn't sleep that night, couldn't get Dylan's expression out of my head, the fear in his eyes. At 3 a.m. I was still awake, staring at the key. At 6 a.m. I couldn't stand it anymore. I drove to Riverside Storage, Mason Avenue like Dylan said. Big facility with climate-controlled units, rows of beige doors, chain-link fence, security cameras. I found Unit C18 in the back row, away from the office. The lock was new, heavy-duty padlock, industrial grade. My hands shook as I turned the key. Click. The door rolled up. File cabinets, 3 tall metal ones, the kind we sold at my hardware store for office organization. A small folding desk Dylan must have brought from home. Documents spread across the top in carefully organized piles. A laptop computer closed, but plugged into the wall outlet to keep it charged and ready. I stepped inside, pulled the door down behind me, turned on the overhead fluorescent light bulb, opened the first file. Drawer. Documents, hundreds of them, all invoices from my business, the hardware supply company I'd built 40 years ago, the one Martin had been running for the last 5 years. I pulled out an invoice from last year, $18,000 payment from a client, except the invoice was wrong. The client's name was right, the amount was right, but the account number at the bottom, that wasn't my business account. I grabbed another invoice, same thing, different client, different amount, wrong account number. I opened another drawer, more invoices, all redirected to the same wrong account. That was all I found that day, just invoices. But it was enough. I sat down on a chair, felt my chest tighten with anger and disbelief. My son had been redirecting client payments to his own account, and Dylan had found out somehow. I went back to the storage unit the next day. This time I searched deeper, went through different drawers, different files. In the bottom drawer, I found what made everything worse. Power of attorney documents with my signature, dated 6 months ago, except I'd never signed a power of attorney. I'd never even discussed one. I stared at the signature. It looked like mine at first glance, but the pen pressure was wrong. The loops were too perfect, forged. My hands started to shake as the implications hit me. This wasn't just redirecting payments. This was identity theft, document fraud. With a forged power of attorney, Martin could do anything. Sell my house, close my accounts, put me in a nursing home. I closed the drawer, sat in the dark storage unit, listened to the hum of the overhead light. Dylan had saved this, copied everything, hidden it here, given me the key. My 16-year-old grandson was trying to protect me from his own father. 2 days later, Martin showed up at my house, unannounced. I was in the garage, fixing a loose hinge on my workbench, heard his car pull up. Dad, you got a minute? I walked to the driveway. Martin stood there in a suit, fresh from work, briefcase in hand. What's up? Can we talk inside? We went to the kitchen. I poured coffee. Martin sat at the table, opened his briefcase, pulled out brochures, Pine Ridge Senior Community, glossy photos, smiling elderly people. Now I understood what I'd seen referenced in some of the storage unit files. Dad, I've been thinking, he said. You're 68. The house is getting too big for you. Maintenance, yard work, stairs. I'm fine. I know you think you are. But Vanessa and I have been worried. You're forgetting things, repeating stories. I wasn't forgetting anything, but I didn't argue. We found this place, he continued, sliding a brochure across. Pine Ridge. Beautiful community, activities, meals included, medical staff on site. Now I understood. The memory care unit for people with dementia. I don't need medical staff. Not yet, but it's good to have. And the house, we can sell it. Use the money for your care. There it was. Sell the house. How much is this place? I asked. $6,500 a month, but we'd handle it. The house sale would cover most of it. My house was worth $320,000, paid off. If they sold it and put me in Pine Ridge, they'd pocket the difference in 2 years. I'll think about it, I said. Martin smiled. That's all I'm asking. Just think about it. He left the brochures on the table. After Martin left, I went back to the storage unit. This time I turned on the laptop, went through digital files. That's when I found the shell company registration. Riverside Hardware Solutions, LLC. Registered in Delaware. Martin is president. Different tax ID, different bank account. The registration was dated 2 years ago. For 2 years, Martin had been redirecting clients. Small amounts at first, then bigger contracts. Last month, a loan, $47,000. I found emails between Martin and Vanessa. Planning. Once we get the POA finalized, we can move him to Pine Ridge. The house sale will cover everything. They had it all planned. The forged power of attorney, the nursing home, selling my house, and the shell company to hide the stolen money. I called my business partner, Janet. Janet, it's Walter. I need a favor. Can you prepare some fake documents for me? What kind of documents? Power of attorney. Real looking but not legally binding. I'll explain later. Pause. Walter? What's going on? I'm testing someone's loyalty. Can you help? I'll have them ready by Friday. Friday afternoon, Janet brought the documents to my house. Power of attorney, transition paperwork, everything Martin would need to take control. These aren't real, Janet said. Just convincing fakes. If anyone tries to file them, they won't hold up. I understand. I signed them, all of them. Janet looked concerned. Walter, are you sure about this? Martin asked me to think about Pine Ridge. I'm thinking about it. Janet nodded. Put the documents in her briefcase. I'll hold these until you're ready to explain what's really going on. After he left, I called Dylan. Grandpa, I found the storage unit. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. You did the right thing, but I need to ask you something. How did you get those documents? Dad made me help, said you were getting forgetful, that we needed to protect you. He had me copy invoices, scan emails, said it was for backup. And you realized what he was really doing. Yeah, I saw the shell company, the wrong account numbers. I copied everything to a USB drive, put it in this storage unit. I've been paying for it with my summer job money. 16 years old, working part-time at a grocery store, spending his money to protect me. Dylan, I need you to do something for me. Can you act normal around your dad, like nothing's wrong? Why? Because I'm going to test him, see how far he'll go. 2 weeks later, Martin called, asked if I'd thought about Pine Ridge. I said. Let's talk about it. Can you and Vanessa come over? Maybe we can go through the details. Absolutely. How about Sunday? Sunday works. Sunday came. Martin and Vanessa showed up at 2. Janet came 10 minutes later. We sat in my living room. Janet had documents ready. Walt, we put together a transition plan, Martin said. Janet drafted everything as my business partner, makes it official. Janet spread papers across my coffee table. This is the power of attorney, she said. Gives Martin authority to handle your finances, health decisions, property sales. And this, Martin added, sliding another paper over, is the agreement to list the house. We found a realtor. She thinks we can get $330,000, $10,000 more than I'd thought. Where would I go while the house sells? Pine Ridge has a guest suite. You'd move in temporarily. Then transition to permanent once the paperwork clears. Temporarily. Right. I looked at the documents, saw my forged signature on the POA, saw the real estate agreement. This is a lot to process, I said. Dad, I know it's hard, but it's the right move. You'll have care, support, no more worrying about the house. Vanessa nodded. It's really a beautiful place, Walter. We toured it last week. They'd toured it. Without me. Can I think about it overnight? Martin's smile tightened. Just a fraction. Of course. But the realtor said the market's strong right now. We should move fast. I understand. They left the documents, said they'd come back tomorrow for my answer. After they drove away, I looked at Janet's paperwork. Decoy documents, none of them legally binding. Janet had printed them on professional letterhead. Same page numbers, same format. But these weren't real. The real power of attorney, the forged one from the storage unit, that was the one with legal weight. If I'd let Martin file it, I'd have lost everything. Martin and Vanessa came back the next morning. So? Martin asked. What did you decide? I sat at the dining room table, documents spread out in front of me. I'll sign, I said. Martin's whole body relaxed. Dad, you're making the right choice. Vanessa smiled. You're going to love Pine Ridge. I picked up the pen, read through the power of attorney, the fake one Janet had printed. This gives you control of everything? I asked. Just financial decisions, healthcare, property, makes it easier for both of us. I signed. Walter, my actual signature this time. Martin witnessed, Vanessa witnessed, Janet brought a mobile notary to make it official. That's it, Janet said. I'll file these with the county tomorrow. Except she wouldn't, because these weren't real. Martin shook my hand. Thanks, Dad. I know this wasn't easy. When do I move? Pine Ridge has an opening next week. We'll help you pack. Next week. They were moving fast. That night, Dylan showed up at my door. Alone. Grandpa, can I come in? I let him in. Made hot chocolate like I used to when he was little. We sat at the kitchen table. I heard Dad sign the papers, Dylan said. He did. So you're really moving to Pine Ridge? That's what your father thinks. Dylan looked up. What do you mean? The documents he signed aren't real. Janet printed decoys. Nothing your dad signed has legal weight. Dylan stared. So, you're not moving? No. But Dad thinks you are. Yes. Why? Because I needed to see how far he'd go. And now I know. Dylan's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I should have told you sooner. But Dad said you were forgetting things, that we were helping you. I didn't realize until I saw the fake invoices. When did you figure it out? 6 months ago. Dad had me scanning documents in his office. I saw a client payment going to the wrong account. Asked him about it. He said it was a bookkeeping error. But then I saw more, and I found the shell company registration. And you copied everything to the storage unit. Yeah. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't tell Mom. She'd tell Dad. I couldn't tell you over the phone. So I waited until dinner. 16 years old. Carrying that secret for 6 months. You did the right thing, I said. You saved me. What happens now? Now we wait. Let your dad think he won, and then we show him the truth. I called a family meeting 10 days later. Martin thought it was about moving logistics. I'd told him we needed to finalize plans. He showed up with Vanessa. I'd called Janet, my business partner for 15 years. Dylan sat in the corner. Quiet. Thanks for coming, I said. I wanted to talk about the transition. Martin nodded. We found a moving company. They can do it this Saturday. Actually, I wanted to talk about a different transition, the one that started 2 years ago. Martin's smile faltered. What? I pulled out a folder, the one from the storage unit. This, I said, sliding papers across the table. Oakwood Hardware Solutions, LLC, your shell company, the one you've been redirecting my clients to. Martin went white. I don't know what you're talking about. The account numbers don't match, I continued. These invoices show client payments going to your company, not mine. $87,000 over 2 years. Vanessa looked at Martin. What is he talking about? I pulled out another document. And this, power of attorney, with my forged signature. You were going to use it to sell my house, put me in Pine Ridge, and keep the money. Walter, you're confused, Martin said. These documents are from Unit C18, I finished, Riverside Storage, where Dylan's been keeping evidence for 6 months. Everyone looked at Dylan. Martin's face went from white to red. Dylan, what did you do? What you made me do, Dylan said quietly. You told me we were protecting Grandpa, but we were stealing from him. I never— Yes, you did, Dylan interrupted. I have emails between you and Mom, planning to put Grandpa in a nursing home, sell his house, keep the money. Vanessa stood up. Martin, is this true? Martin didn't answer. Janet spoke for the first time. Walter, what do you need from me? I need you to audit the business accounts, every transaction for the last 2 years, separate what's mine from what Martin redirected. She nodded. I'll start tomorrow. I looked at Martin. You're terminated. Effective immediately. No access to business accounts, no client contact. You'll return company property by Friday. You can't do that. I own 100% of the business. I can do exactly that. Martin stood. This is insane. You're confused. Dad, you need help. The only one who needs help is you, I said, because I'm filing a police report tomorrow. Fraud, embezzlement, forgery. Vanessa grabbed her purse. I need to go. She left. Martin followed, yelling. The door slammed. Dylan sat in the corner, crying. I walked over, hugged him. You're okay, I said. You did the right thing. 3 months later, Dylan moved in with me permanently. Vanessa filed for divorce 2 weeks after our meeting. She'd had no idea about the embezzlement or forged documents. Martin had hidden everything from her completely. The police investigation took 4 weeks. They found $87,000 in the Riverside Hardware Solutions account. Martin had been planning to drain it once my house sold and disappear. He was charged with fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. The trial is set for next spring. Janet and I restructured the business, added oversight, changed all the account passwords, recovered most of the redirected funds. Dylan's living in the guest room, going to school, working part-time at the grocery store. He wants to study business in college, says he wants to run companies honestly. I'm 68 years old, still running my hardware business, still living in my house, still making Sunday dinners. But now it's just me and Dylan. And that feels right. Sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I go back to that moment, when he pressed the key into my palm, when he whispered those desperate words. That took courage, to betray your own father to protect your grandfather. I asked him once why he did it. Because you taught me right from wrong, he said. And what Dad was doing was wrong. I built a hardware business for 40 years, made money, helped people. But the best thing I ever built was the relationship with my grandson. He saved my business, my house, my future. And I'm going to make sure he never has to carry a secret like that again. The storage unit's empty now. Dylan closed the account last month. We don't need it anymore. But I kept the small silver key very carefully. Unit C18, sitting right on my office desk as a daily permanent reminder of everything. A reminder that sometimes the people who betray you are the ones closest to you. And sometimes the people who save you are the ones you'd never expect. Dylan was 16 when he gave me that storage key and changed our lives forever. Now he's 17, living with me safely and happily, protected from his father's criminal schemes. And when he graduates high school next year, I'm signing half the business over to him. Not because I'm getting old, not because I need help. Because he earned it, completely. The day he whispered, "Hide this key," and gave me the truth.